Welcome to the Temporal Technologies product roadmap update. So we want to do these periodically to connect with our users, our customers, folks that are interested in Temporal. We've built this and we usually deliver these on a spectrum of content meant for folks that are new to Temporal or their current customers, power users. I think everyone can get a good amount of value of this, but we will we have a good show here where we'll walk through a lot of exciting updates in our product roadmap. A lot of what we want to do here is just to have a conversation too with our group here around questions that you have, inputs that you have, ideas that you have around building with Temporal, ideas that you have around use cases you're building now or what you want to build, or just things that you might find interesting for us to consider on the Temporal roadmap. So, Dan, you can jump to the next slide. The session will be recorded, so if you're here and you need to drop, all good. We will send the recording into your email inbox after the show, probably either later today or sometime early tomorrow morning. Next slide. Cool. So really simple agenda. I'll start off with some housekeeping stuff to make sure everyone is aware of how to use the Zoom webinar platform if you're not already familiar with it. And then the bulk of the show will be walking through a lot of our roadmap content of some of the specific features and capabilities we're building into the Temporal platform. And then we'll spend time both throughout and at the end doing Q&A. We've invited several folks from the Temporal team, product managers, and the engineers. A lot of the folks who are really close to building these specific capabilities to join us today. So if you have questions, um, we will be able to answer those here. So if you go to the next slide, I'll walk you through how to do that. So if you're new to Zoom Google Webinar, what works best is if you use the Q&A feature. So if you're looking at your Zoom webinar window, at least for me, it's on the bottom, the navigation there. There's chat, raise your hand, share, etc. There's the Q&A button or feature there. That's the best place to ask questions. Our team will be monitoring that, and we'll either answer it within the Q&A window asynchronously, or we'll flag it to answer live here on the call. Any questions that we don't get to, we will answer in the community afterwards. So that gets me to the middle column here. We have a really vibrant and growing Slack community for Temporal users, customers, folks that are interested in Temporal's open source project and more. If you go to that URL, t.mp/Slack, that'll bring you to the setup to get to join the Slack community. The channel events-live is the spot to ask questions that we'll be monitoring as well, both during and after the show. So events-live in the Temporal Slack community is a good spot to ask questions from content that you see here and more. And then lastly, every month we send out an email to our community newsletter. Includes a lot of important information, notably a lot of the product updates that we both ship every month and things that we're considering in the future. So you'll see a lot of this content in that newsletter. And then going forward, if you're a user of Temporal and you're interested just to stay in touch with what we're building, what we're shipping, things that are new to the platform, that email newsletter is a really good spot to get a summary of that every month. Okay. Cool. Yeah, if you have any questions, use the Q&A feature. We'll be monitoring that as well as the chat if you have any issues with the webinar. Cool. All right, and with me, I'm Stu, the director of product marketing here at Temporal. With me, I've got Dan, our VP of product, a lot of experience in the industry, and I'll let Dan kind of further introduce myself and get going.
Yeah, thanks for having me on this. I'm Dan. I'm relatively new here. I think it's 5 months this week and finding my feet here and enjoying it. I've worked in the cloud space for 11 years now, and I've worked in the messaging and middleware space for when I first started working in the Valley. Someone said after 20, just say more than 20 years, but I'll just say more than 20 years, quite a bit more than 20 years. So yeah, super excited to be here and super excited to walk through this content. And as we do, I do want to kind of bring the lens at which I'm looking at a lot of what we're going to cover and kind of how we're going to think about the features and things and capabilities we bring to the market going forward and bring to our users. Is that I always like to know kind of who something is for. That's one of the core product things everyone's going to ask themselves at the beginning of any journey. And so I'm looking at the world right now in through sort of four lenses. The person who's writing workflows with Temporal, so the app developer themselves, the person who's operating the platform, so the person who's responsible often for writing, but as a platform persona about kind of running things once they're written and making sure that they're working, the architect persona and the executive persona. And so these kind of lenses just help me kind of frame what these things are for. And they'll come up, these friends will reappear later in this walkthrough. And before we jump into this, I do want to note that we have a publicly documented way that we release our capabilities through three phases. One's a pre-release, and this will look slightly different depending on whether it's for things that are in, self-hostable form or things that are in our cloud, which require like an invite. Some of the things you'll see here are pre-release, and we're looking for design partners and people to try them, but they're not open to everybody. Public preview are things that are open to everybody. You're going to get normal documentation and stuff, but there is a caveat that it is preview, so some things can change. And then GA is GA. You're getting our full, promises. Everything's tested, solid, stable, and kind of what you would expect for production ready stuff. So as we walk through these, we'll see these. And for those personas, I also like to think about like kind of three primary themes that I've always liked to put cloud stuff into and software stuff in general about reliability, usability, and security. And if something has to be reliable, that's our core promise anyway. In order to be usable, it needs to be secure so that you'll use it, and it needs to be easy to use so that you can use it and use it more. And it's not just limited to like the most sophisticated users. So starting off with these and reliability, I'm going to shotgun through these pretty quick. Please put stuff in Q&A and whatever, we'll get to them. There are three things I'm going to talk about in particular. The first are kind of two of the same sort of thing, which is our continuum of availability features. One that is GA now is multi-region replication. So this is going to replicate your namespace across two different regions in a cloud provider in two regions you choose in your cloud provider. And you're going to get an extra 9 of availability out of this. If you do this, what's kind of cool is that you can choose then if you want this to be an automated or user-initiated failover. So like this means that your applications will keep running even if there's a regional failure in the cloud provider that we're running on and that you're running on. So this is pretty awesome. And if you have really important stuff, is a really good way to make sure that it's always going to be there. It is GA now. We definitely recommend this for mission critical workloads. Another kind of flavor or variant of this is to do replication in the same region. This is the same or similar type of underlying technology, but the idea here is that the blast radius is a bit of a different configuration here. It's different infrastructure within that region, so within that cloud provider. And they're different sets of infrastructure. So we're not hosting the two parts of the namespace on the same infrastructure. So we still have good blast radius control. If we lose, layers of compute or other things, the namespace is still there. And so you're also getting the extra 9 from here. And for anyone who's not familiar with our SLA and our nines, it might say 4 nines, but it's a really strong promise. It's the strongest promise I've ever seen for an SLA, and because it's per request based. So this is also good for things that need a lot of availability and for things where you don't necessarily want to be going through crossing regions when you're doing your replication, just because not everybody is set up in a place to have compute and other necessary resources deployed to multiple regions. We're a piece of an application interacting with other parts. And so if your parts aren't highly available and distributed, then, this is probably a better choice if you live in single region. Um, Worker versioning is another one. Workflows run a long time. They're stateful. That's their whole value. And that's great. And we make that a lot easier than it would be to do on your own, but it does come with some baggage that you might want to change logic over time. And so you need to figure out what that means for your running workflows. So traditionally people have, excuse me, solved this with conditional logic, and doing a lot of just heavy lifting themselves. To do this, what we're introducing in this pre-release for worker versioning is that you'll be able to make choices about these things like pinning workflows to a specific version of your worker service for their entire lifetime, or letting them upgrade automatically. So this is the first step into giving you more sophisticated controls over how you will upgrade your workflows and how you deploy those upgrades. So there's a cool video linked in here that you should go check out for more details about this. Again, this is pre-release, so we are looking for people to kick the tires and try this out. And we're targeting public preview for the next half. Um, Beyond those, we're doing a ton of work internally for reliability, but these are the tools that you get and control and choose. Now I want to talk a little bit about usability. Here's where we're spending a whole lot of effort on making our framework, our tools, our cloud more usable. And I'll jump through all these things fairly quickly. Again, just to follow up on them. When I look at usability, I kind of break this down into two of those personas we talked about earlier, the person building applications and then the person making sure those applications are running, making sure that the platform they're running on is working the way they expect. And so I'll speak through these in those lenses, those personas. And when we look at application developer usability, there's a lot of stuff for activity and workflow stuff that's happening now. We have a pre-release for activity and workflow commands. The idea behind this whole package of work is that when you have activities that break, you want to be able to mitigate or unbreak those activities, both individually and as sets or bulk. And you want to be able to do this probably through the UI or the command line. And so right now you have a pause and unpause for an activity. If a specific activity is not going to be in a state where it can work, you probably want to pause those until, if it's downstream service or some dependency you have to restore is available so that it can move forward. And also do things like update or the activity options, so timeouts, retry policies, things like that, and do resets. So there's some cool stuff here. More things will come. But this is kind of this first level of individual activity and then workflow kind of management commands. The next bucket of things in here has to do with synchronous workflows. So synchronous workflows, a lot of the stuff is performance optimizations that will help our model fit better for latency sensitive workloads. In this case, eager start, you're wanting to kind of bundle the start and the first um, uh, task execution of the workflow together. So there are some, this is a good optimization. It's going to reduce your latency. There are some assumptions it makes. So you do want to be aware of. So the starter and the workflow share the same client SDK. We're kind of bundling, doing this optimization. You get to skip a persistent step. And this is cool because it means that you don't have to wait as long to get responses back from these things. So we're trying to make our model more applicable, not just with this, but also with its friend, the next one, which is update with start, which is more of a lazy initialization. Um, and this is a good one because this is a good canonical example that everyone runs into at some point, is this idea of like create a shopping cart if it doesn't already exist and add the first item to it. So you're getting to skip through something quicker where you're returning early because you probably have a human or some other service waiting on the backside and you want to return, but you're getting a promise that I shouldn't say the word promise because in some of our languages that means something different, but you're getting uh, a, a guarantee that you're going to be able to complete this. Our initial benchmarks show that it's 40% faster than doing update and then start. So it's really just a change to our model and an optimization. And we hope it serves, again, a broader use case. Our public preview for this is in Go and Java, and we're targeting GA pretty quick with it. So to get some more people uh, using this soon. The next one is workflow updates. Yeah, totally cool, Drew. The workflow updates one, this is cool too, because like sometimes you want to interact with the workflow in a synchronous fashion without having to do like hammer pulling on it. And so this is a change to an expansion, I would say, to our model to be able to get results interactively from these workflows rather than having to query until the result is ready. So it's going to reduce latency, reduce your action count that you incur while doing that, and then make kind of these interactions of interacting with state in a workflow faster and more efficient. So again, we're always trying to drive efficiency in our ease of use and also in the way that it may make it easier to use our tools or our platform in your applications. So two-way interactions with running workflows should be a lot easier and more efficient with this. Task queue priority. This is in pre-release now. This is a fun one. This is actually pretty cool. Is that task queues inherently don't have any priority, so everything's kind of running at the same priority. This is a simple integer-based range for priority, and tasks are dispatched then in strictly priority order within each queue partition. This is really cool for when you want to say some things should run ahead of others. In my mind, the example I see, we talk about an example like real time versus batch. Real time things probably need to happen first. Another good one would be like airline status or something. You probably want to do the work for people with the highest airline status first, then people with a lower airline status, because that's the promise you're making as an airline. And they can serve as emergency overrides for specific tasks to preempt others. This is there today in pre-release. We're looking for a public preview target in third quarter. Excuse me. And there will be more work on this. Task queue priority itself will have some observability features added. And we expect to be coming in on stable APIs pretty quickly. And then building on top of this is fairness. Fairness is actually a more sophisticated feature where you can use key and weights to get more granular control about distributing your resources across tenants. And it actually works with priority. So fairness applies within each priority level. And the idea here is to just use a short string and a positive float weight to allocate your capacity that you have in your pools, in your queues proportionally. So again, this is giving you better control over how you want your work to be performed. And between these two levers, we feel like we have a pretty sophisticated mechanism. We're giving you a pretty sophisticated mechanism to control how your work happens. And then we actually have a Ruby SDK out in our public preview. SDKs are a big deal for us. All of you would know working with us that our SDKs are like very idiomatic to the language that they're in. These aren't just API wrappers. So having a new one is awesome for us, and having parity coming really quickly for it is great. And our promise forever is to keep our languages all up to date and not have a jagged experience. It's a big promise. It's a big ambition, but hopefully we can do a good job of doing it. All right. And then Nexus. If you have not played with Nexus yet, if you've not started to use Nexus, it's definitely something you should be taking a look at. Where we started with workflows is really cool and really powerful. But if you want to be able to share subsets of your temporal applications with clean service contracts between different consumers, that could be across teams, across namespaces, across domains and cloud regions. Nexus is the way to do that. So we expect this to be something that makes it easier to go from one team using Temporal to many teams using Temporal, and then being able to reuse logic and pieces between those. So this is a really big bet for us that brings, not just sharing, but the ability to isolate and secure those things as you share, to share safely. And so we're super excited about this. And if you're not playing with it now, you should be at least looking at it. And now on the set of operator usability stuff, I'm going to speed up a little bit here because we're going a little slow. There's a new set of metrics coming out, excuse me, pretty quickly. They'll be in preview first. And basically, we want to get aligned with how metrics kind of work in the rest of the cloud. So having like a scrapable endpoint rather than a query endpoint that we have today, and having it accessible with API keys. And then we're also going to expand the set of metrics available. So you'll get metrics at different granularities that aren't available yet, and get a new set of metrics to help you understand performance of how your namespaces are performing. These are cloud-based metrics for the most part, so be prepared for that and get ready for using them. Metrics to me is as like someone who's operated a lot of or run a lot of platform stuff is critically important to being able to understand how to reason about how things are working. Speaking of operating, Cloud Operations API. This is in a public preview now. We'll be GAing pretty quick. This is a separate set of APIs, a separate SDK, I should say, or set of APIs for managing our cloud, separate from like the CLI. And it's the basis for how we expect people to interact with our services going forward. Things like our Terraform provider sit on top of it, which is the next thing I wanted to talk about. Again, putting back on my platform hat. To me, everything being interactive, operable through Terraform is a must-have for us. So we're going to take our Terraform provider even more seriously than we have so far. And so this is like you have some things in here now, namespaces and users. You will get everything in it. Multimodality interaction with our cloud is a promise I'm willing to make, even on a recorded meeting. Worker tuning is fantastic for our operator persona. This is something everyone has to do, and it's kind of hard today. We don't have a lot of tools for you to do this today. We're starting a journey now of developing a whole set of tools that we're going to be giving you to figure out how to manage your worker fleet. A lot of these start with metrics, so task queue metrics are kind of the first set of things. There will be other things coming with this. And so a lot of this is looking at your backlog and your rates. And so again, visibility and being able to reason about what your workers are doing and how you can tune them is a big area of investment for us. This is GA and Go, so give it a call and give it a try, and it's coming to all the other SDKs. Worker scaling is kind of similar to this. Is today there's no great signal to know, when there's a big backlog of tasks or an insufficient number of workers. We're going to be doing investment here to make this easier to kind of manage and understand your workers and easier to steer your side of the compute that you must run with us. That's a public preview and workflow history export. This is there now. I think this is still a public preview. And it lets you do exports of closed workflows. So handy feature to have. We've also increased some of the visibility in our billing center. So for at scale, again, one of these things that kind of becomes important is being able to reason about what spend is happening and what it's costing you. So we're making investments here. There will be some more exciting stuff we'll announce next time we get together or talk about next time we get together about cost management and visibility. But we're starting that journey as well. And we've done a lot of work on marketplaces. Marketplaces are a good way to do transactions in the cloud. So you can purchase Temporal through AWS and GCP marketplaces today. Now, one of my favorite buckets, security, to kind of bring us home on this. The things I'll shotgun through here are private connectivity enhancements. We do support Private Link and Private Services Connect. Today, they're manual. You have to use support tickets to go through those. They're going to be self-service very quickly. Like I said, everything needs to be self-serviceable. Everything needs to be multimodal. So you'll be able to do this. This should make friction with getting private connectivity to Temporal less. Service accounts are coming very quickly to GA, which is service accounts. People want a non-human identity to auth N and auth Z for their workers. RBAC enhancements. We do have some new roles. We're starting some pretty serious work on RBAC coming up pretty quickly, but we have some new roles out right now in public preview, which are going to do things like account owner and finance administrator so that we can facilitate that kind of cost understanding stuff I just talked about. Keep an eye peeled for more impactful RBAC and account level stuff coming soon. And then SCIM support. So SCIM support, meaning IDP synchronization, is this is one of those things that like boring things are exciting. And this one is one of those for sure, which is that you don't have to today, like without SCIM support, you have to manage your users separately. And with SCIM support, we'll automate provisioning and deprovisioning of users based on SCIM. So it's coming from your identity provider, so that you don't have to go manually provide manage all these users. You don't need to invite users manually and configure their RBAC permissions. So again, this is one of those things at scale, past like one team, this stuff becomes a lot easier to make Temporal a part of your broader organizational platform. And then namespace auth with API keys. I am a cloud native. I've never actually worked at a software company that didn't do cloud, and because I didn't work at software company before I moved to the cloud 11 years ago. And so API keys is kind of the natural way that people interact with cloud services. We didn't have that for a long time. We do now. And they're there in public preview, targeting a quick GA for all of our interactions. And you get to create and manage your keys, and they're audited in our audit logs like you would expect. So this should make it a lot more comfortable for other cloud native users and services to interact with us. And I think I got that right on time, according to our targets at least. So
Well, pretty impressive, Dan. It's a lot of content to rip through in 20 or 25 minutes. Um, yeah,
drink the
so
coffee.
we've been following the chat and the Q&A, some good questions coming in. Now's a good time after you've kind of gotten a brain dump of the content on the roadmap. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature. We can hang on for some time to answer those. I saw one get answered on the Nexus from Phil. Thanks for doing that, Phil. Um, there's an open one for cost management. Are there any plans to export usage data by namespace in industry standard focus formats or focus format?
Um, that's that. I would use standard uh, in quotes with that, but exporting usage by namespace is definitely there. We have some stuff that's available in a very crude form, but there's some work we're doing around tagging and other capabilities that'll make this a lot easier for you. Yes, we are going down this journey. Not necessarily in that format, but in a way that'll be usable from other tools.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. I'll keep going. Looks like there was one. There's a feature request or a PR 434. If there's plans to work on this. I don't have the answer now, but we'll make a note for the person that's submitted that and can get back to you.
I'm digging in to find out what the status is right now.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Drew. All right, let's see. Phil, looks like you're typing an answer to can API keys and certs be used in parallel as a fallback authentication mechanism?
Yeah, I believe that's in public preview, but I'll double check on that.
Okay, cool. Another good question for security. Any plans to support HTTPS on the metrics API anytime soon or open source?
I can answer that. Right now, there is no immediate plan on that, but we can take into look into this and see if we can get it.
Cool, good question. Can or will the SCIM SCIM user management allow for mapping of users back to namespaces?
That's a good question. We're toying with some pretty substantial changes to our permissions model. So it will. The question is, when will it? If is it with our current model or the model that we're thinking about for next, which is an expansion, not a replacement. Um, so yeah, I think that's a good follow up. I need to follow up on that one.
Okay, great. Let me see if I'm missing anything. Okay, we get this question pretty often. Rust SDK. Any preview like if or when Temporal's considering an official Rust SDK? Because I think there's an unofficial one out there, right?
Yeah, the challenge for us on SDKs is that as I mentioned in that uh, shotgun through our roadmap, is that they're very heavyweight for us because they're idiomatic to each language. So like we're not even done with Ruby yet. So that kind of, I don't want to start something new until we're done, like GA with something else. So right now, that's not something I'm really that pushing that hard on. The thing I'm trying to avoid is jagged experiences. I don't want to live in a world where people on some languages have full features and others don't. That's a really bad experience. So until I feel confident that we can maintain what we have, which is now bigger than it used to be, meaning more languages, maintain them at the same rate of development for features shipping to them. Uh, I'm not really prepared to go any further. Like I have to shore up what we have. I just don't want something that's not great,
Yeah.
which is hard, but it's the truth.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And like, is there anything more like in how you think about prioritizing feature requests? Do you think that would be helpful? Because we of course get a lot of different feature requests, small, medium, and large. And many of them get prioritized, many of them don't. Is there anything more to share on like how Temporal prioritizes new requests that might be helpful for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the reason. I mean, I'm selfishly the reason I'm here, and probably the other product managers, is that we need more signal, we need more interaction. So we need to hear from you, all in the audience, about what you need, what's working, and what's not. And yeah, we're going to do pretty traditional product-y things about the number of asks, the volume of the asks, the kind of impact they have in alignment with our strategy. But like it doesn't work without getting signal. So yeah, we need signal. So please engage with us on the things that you care deeply about, so that we can feed our pipeline better.
Very cool. Let's see. I think we have a few more.
We can answer this activity commands. So a question is that we will be able to basically configure retry policies, but can we have rules that it can auto trigger? Like if I say my activity fail X number of times, can I pause this? The answer is yes. It's something that we're making great progress and will be available. Drew, do you have latest status on where we are on that?
We are working on this. It's a part of a cluster of a larger set of we're basically creating a system of rules that will be able to, like Yemen said, it will be able to do a variety of different triggers and different actions. And this is one of the most important use cases built on that system. And so it's also something that so it's something we'll do early. So look forward in H2. The other thing I would say is if you're interested, if you have thoughts on if you want to like connect with me privately so we can discuss your use case in more detail, I'd love to chat.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Um, another good one here. Looking for more of a recommendation. How do folks generally recommend self-hosting temporal to run within service mesh like Linkerd or Cilium, or suggest to use the native TLS support?
Um, for this one, I think the TLS is the most common one that I can say. I don't have a lot of experience in the service mesh theme, but it's straightforward to go with TLS. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Can API keys inserts be used in parallel as a fallback off a mechanism?
Mm.
Um, I don't know the answer.
I actually don't either. I know there's some, I don't know what I should say there.
So you can enable both on a given namespace, and so I believe you can. I'm just checking to see if it's public preview or GA right now. But yeah, you can select both of those when you create a namespace.
Very cool.
I would want to ask, is the idea there is that like a break class is the reason to have those as a failback, as a fallback mechanism for like a break class, or if there's a problem with your IDP or something?
I mean, even migration, right, from one to the other.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Some
cool
good
idea.
question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's sorry, but for I'm just very curious. Like if you have an invalid API key, I don't think it will fail and fall back to the TLS. I think it will just fail your request. That's my that's my belief.
Oh, yeah, if you're using one form of credential, yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's correct.
So I guess they can be used as an alternative, not as a failback.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, you pick one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Simon.
Good point. Okay. I think that's it. Any last questions? Otherwise, we can certainly close. And this Slack community, the events-live, is an excellent place to, if questions come up later today, watching the recording or at any time, the Slack community, all of us are in there, our engineers, community members, to help answer these types of specific questions. So feel free to reach out there.
There's one more question regarding I think versioning. I think we wanted to take this.
Okay, yeah, let me see. Um,
Um,
let's see. Is there a way to shift traffic or request to new versions of a workflow like Canary deployment so that you can set to something like 90% on stable version, 10% on the new version, and potentially
I think this is the ramp feature that we were talking about in Safe Deploy.
Yeah, so you can also do like 0% ramp and then do some synthetic testing and then ramp to 10% or whatever you want. So you can send like workflows, like manually send workflows to your deployment, and then once you're satisfied with that those succeed, then you can start ramping. And as far as implementing it on your own, I mean, we have commands that do it out of the box. So, and then we also are working on a Kubernetes controller that also uses both of these features under the hood, so that you don't even have to use our commands directly if you don't want to.
There's another question about am I in between cloud and self-host? I think Dan, you probably will be the best to answer this.
Yeah, we want those things to be able to work together for moving in and out of our cloud. And we have a long set of work to do on this sort of replication. Things get kind of complicated once you get out of the cloud because a lot of things we rely on are not as stable or not as much in our control. But that is the North Star that we have.
At the current moment, we are not able to do that. We have already taken our first step, which is now if you have a self-host namespace and you wanted to move that workload to cloud, we have done enough work so that this is now possible. The other way around require more work that we will be working on, and then eventually continuous replication between the two sides. It's something that we haven't finalized on if we have a concrete plan or yet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you everyone for joining us today, participating, asking good questions. Again, if more questions come up, either reply to the email that we'll send you, that'll include the recording and the content that you saw here today, with some helpful links as well. And then if you have additional questions or want to deep dive into a specific topic, the Slack community is a great spot for that. So again, thanks everyone, and have a great rest of your Thursday.